Picture the morning that could save your life. They say death comes in silence, but what if I told you it has already visited quietly this morning? What if, while you slept peacefully, something inside you began to fade? Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, invisibly. Your blood thickened, your balance shifted, your joints dried like ancient doors that have not been opened in years. Your brain, still lost in fog, waited for a signal that never came. The danger is not in what you did wrong. The danger is in what you never knew mattered. You see, there is a moment, right when your eyes open, when the body stands at a sacred crossroads. It is that moment, often dismissed, often neglected, that decides not just how today unfolds, but how your health, memory, strength, and independence will shape the years ahead. And yet, we squander it. We grab the phone. We force our legs out of bed. We drink coffee on autopilot. And with each careless morning, we offer time to the slow decay of the body. Welcome to Buddha Story. This is not a channel for empty inspiration. This is a journey back to what was always sacred. Today, I will take you through a forgotten path, one that blends the teachings of the Buddha, the science of aging, and the deep wisdom of those who choose to age with power, not despair. And I promise you, once you understand what happens in those first 5 minutes, you will never see your mornings the same way again. If this message already stirs something in your heart, take a breath and honor it. Then subscribe to this channel so we can continue bringing you stories and teachings that reconnect you to yourself. Let us begin. Long ago in a forest monastery far from any village, an old monk named Aniru sat on the edge of his sleeping mat each dawn. He would not speak. He would not rush. He would bring both hands together, whisper a silent vow, and begin his day with what he called the 5 gates. No one understood the power of these small acts until Aniru, at the age of 93, walked barefoot for hours through the snow to reach a village in need. When they asked how a man his age could still move with such grace, he simply said, "I never forgot how to greet the morning." This story is not fantasy. It is reflection. It is biology. It is choice. When you wake each morning, your body's already struggling. During sleep, you lose hydration. Through breath, through your skin, through the stillness itself, your blood becomes thick. Your heart, now pumping harder to push this slower river, begins the day under pressure. That is why strokes and heart attacks occur most frequently in the early hours, especially for those over 65. And what do we do when we rise? We drink coffee, caffeine, a diuretic that steals more water from our already parched system. Or worse, we skip liquids altogether. We think we are waking up, but in truth, we are asking our heart to sprint before it has even stood up. The first gate is water. Not cold, not sugary, just warm with a slice of lemon. It may seem too simple, too soft, but understand this. Warm water gently opens your vessels. Lemon supports the liver's efforts to release the toxins it filtered all night. The body does not want to be jolted. It wants to be invited back into flow. This is not a health tip. It is a sacred offering. The same way monks begin their day with a bowl of water before the statue of the Buddha, you begin with a cup that honors the temple of your body. But what of movement? There is a story passed among forest monks about Master Ramu, a quiet man who never raised his voice, never moved in haste. At the monastery, it was Ramu who would unlock the temple doors each morning. But before touching the key, he would stretch, softly, silently. When asked why, he replied, "The door outside opens easily. The door inside needs care." The second gate is movement, gentle, grounded, not exercise, awakening. After a night of stillness, your blood is pooled, your muscles rest in silence. Your brain, still under the influence of melatonin, waits for proof that it is safe to rise. This is why so many elders feel dizzy, unsteady, or forgetful when they stand up too quickly. Before your feet hit the ground, sit, breathe. Raise your arms overhead. Stretch them as if reaching for light. Lower them slowly, like releasing the past. Rotate your shoulders. Move your neck. Rise and lift your heels 10 times. These movements are ancient. The Shaolin monks practiced them. So did the yogis of the early Sangha. They are not exercise, they are alignment. They tell the brain, we are here, we are safe, we are ready. In 1 minute, blood begins to flow. The fog begins to lift. Clarity follows, but clarity alone is not strength. The third gate is nourishment. You see, after a long night of fasting, the body seeks fuel. And if none is given, it begins to break down what it has, your muscles. Especially as you age, this process known as catabolism becomes more aggressive. Without morning protein, your body eats itself. In the scriptures, there is a moment before the Buddha's enlightenment that is rarely emphasized. After 6 years of fasting, of torturing the body in the search for truth, Siddhartha lay under a tree, weak and near death. A young village girl named Sumira saw him and offered a simple bowl of rice milk. He accepted. That moment was not weakness, it was wisdom. He realized then that starvation was not the path, that honoring the body was not attachment. It was necessary for awakening. So too must we honor ours. Within 30 minutes of waking, offer yourself a small meal, a boiled egg, a protein shake, a spoon of Greek yogurt. It does not need to be large. It needs to be conscious. This one act, when practiced consistently, can slow muscle loss by up to 60% in 5 years. But more than that, it tells your body, I will not let you fade. These 3 gates, hydration, movement, nourishment, are the foundation. But they are not the end. They are the beginning of how you reclaim your body each morning. In the next chapter of this journey, we will open the final 2 gates, mobility and memory. But before we continue, let me ask you something. If tomorrow morning you could choose only one of these rituals, which would you begin with? A. Hydration with warm lemon water. B. 1 minute of gentle movement by your bed. Type A or B in the comments and let us know. Your choice may inspire someone else to begin. And perhaps that small ripple will save a life, the mind you keep alive. When the body has been gently welcomed into the world each morning, through water, through motion, through nourishment, there remains one more realm to awaken. And it is perhaps the most delicate, the most elusive, the mind. For what good is strength without clarity? What use is mobility without memory? We have seen elders whose hands are steady, whose legs still carry them, yet whose gaze drifts into confusion, caught in webs of fading recollection. And we have seen others, even with stooped backs and slow steps, whose minds shine like polished lanterns. What separates them is not fate, it is cultivation. The great teacher Anoma once said, to keep the body upright is the task of breath, but to keep the mind from drifting is the work of presence. She would rise before the sun, wrap herself in a robe worn thin by years of practice, and sit not to empty her mind, but to remember. This practice was called reverse recall. While the village around her began to stir, while roosters broke the silence with noise and laborers yawned into the coming day, she sat in stillness and asked herself, what was the last thing I felt yesterday? Who did I speak to? What words did I use? What did the sky look like before dusk? What colors passed my eyes? What silence passed through my bones? And then she would go deeper. Not to analyze, not to judge, but to retrieve her own life from forgetfulness. The practice might seem small, pointless even. But modern neuroscience, thousands of years after the Buddha's teachings, has now confirmed what practitioners like Anoma always knew, that recollection builds resilience, that remembering the details of yesterday stretches the mind's ability to hold on to time, to structure thought, to reignite dormant circuits. Scientists call this cognitive reserve. The elders who develop it are not spared aging, but they resist its descent. They remember, they adapt, they stay. In the monasteries, this form of practice was never taught as memory training. It was taught as gratitude, because to remember is to honor what was given. The food, the voices, the mistakes, the smiles, the breath. In a world that teaches us to move faster, scroll endlessly, get as soon as we consume, this kind of remembering is radical. It is a rebellion against noise, a return to awareness. But even that is not enough. The fourth stage of learning presence is not only about the mind, it is about the structure that holds the mind in place, your mobility. After the age of 60, the joints become a fragile map of your life. The miles you have walked, the chairs you have sat in, the years you spent hunched at desks or lifting children or carrying burdens not always your own. Each joint tells a story, but in the morning those stories feel like resistance, stiffness, pain. You rise and your ankles resist the floor. Your knees creak, your hips hesitate, your back stiffens like a door long sealed. This is not failure. This is not weakness. This is the body asking, will you meet me here before we move into the day? The answer must be yes. There was once a man named Darrow, a gardener, soft-spoken and mostly unnoticed. At 78, he still tended the monastery's forest path, clipping branches, carrying water, turning the soil. One morning, a visitor, much younger, asked him the secret to his lightness of movement. Darrow smiled and said, "I greet my joints like friends. I never ask them to hurry. I just remind them they are still needed." His morning practice was simple. After waking and breathing, he would sit on the edge of his mat and rotate his ankles 10 times each way, then his knees, his hips, his shoulders. He would hold a wooden stick and twist his torso slowly, side to side. He would lean left, then right, with his breath leading the way. He would whisper "thank you," not aloud, but in movement. This took no more than 2 minutes, but it meant that when he moved through the forest, he moved like wind. This is what most people forget. Freedom is not found in the mind alone. It is found in your ability to reach a shelf without pain, to turn and greet a loved one, to kneel in a garden, to dance, even if no one is watching. Mobility is not vanity. It is independence. And it must be preserved like fire on a cold night. The synovial fluid in your joints thickens during sleep. If you move too fast, it offers no cushion. Bones grind. Inflammation begins. The door to long-term damage opens quietly. But just 2 minutes of mindful movement, of small rotations, of gentle twists, can reawaken the lubrication your body needs to protect itself. More than that, it tells your body the truth. I still care for you. I have not abandoned you. You are still my home. In the Buddhist tradition, the body is seen as both impermanent and sacred. It is not clung to, but it is not dismissed. The Buddha taught his disciples to clean their robes, their bowls, and their limbs, not out of attachment, but out of respect. To maintain mobility is to respect the vehicle of your path. To awaken memory is to respect the story you have lived. Together, they form the second part of this morning practice. They are the final 2 gates. So when you rise tomorrow, ask yourself, will I move with silence or rush? Will I forget the life I lived yesterday or remember it as a gift? Will I treat my joints as obstacles or as the companions who have carried me through decades? You do not need to spend an hour. You do not need to be perfect, but 5 minutes, 5 sacred minutes to move with intention, to recall with presence, to begin not as a machine booting up, but as a being re-entering the temple of life. That is enough. That is powerful. That is how you rise, not just from sleep, but from the unconsciousness of habit. The world will wait for you, but your body and mind will not. Begin with them, greet them, honor them, and you may find at the end of your days that you did not merely survive your later years, you inhabited them, awake, alive, and free.